Mr. Rittenhouse, whenever you're ready, sir. Thank you. We are going to call to order the special meeting for the Akron Public Schools Board of Education for Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. Roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar?
Here.
Mr. Alexander? Mrs. Autry?
Present.
Mr. Bravo?
Here.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Here.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Here.
Thank you. And if we could all go ahead and mute, then we will commence with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us in our series of discussions about the Akron Public School District. And today we're going to focus a little bit on academic and program performance. So, Mr. Superintendent.
Good evening, board members. Yeah, this evening we'll have a review that we actually went over with our College and Career Academy Steering Committee. Those are some very important, I think, data points that really talks about our programming that we've implemented and how important that will be moving forward. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. McWilliams-Woods and Rachel Tecca, who will go through a presentation to review some of that data from our College and Career Academy program.
Thank you, everyone. It is great to be here tonight to bring to you an update on our performance. We just talked on Monday about such an interesting year that we had and how we finished with COVID, but it was really important for us to continue looking at our progress, even despite the disruption in services that we had the last few months of school. So tonight we're bringing you some important information about, in particular, our progress in our College and Career Academy transformation that we've been doing in the district, which is pre-K through 12. And we're going to emphasize that, Mrs. Tecca and I, throughout the presentation, because oftentimes the community only thinks of it as high school, but this is a pre-K through 12 transformation. So we'll give you important progress data on that transformation and end with kind of looking forward in terms of what's next and the progress, making sure that everything that happened since March on and then everything that we presented to you all on Monday about our reopening plans. Most importantly, we want to keep the momentum flowing from now through next year and not lose a beat in terms of our transformation that we've been full force ahead in this district. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tecca to start us off.
Thank you, Dr. McWilliams-Woods. It is my pleasure to be able to share with all of you some of the outcome data that really represents the hard work of our educators, our students, our families, and our community partners that really have dedicated themselves to doing the work necessary to develop the skills and competencies that have been laid out in our Portrait of a Graduate. As Dr. James shared initially, this information around College and Career Academies was shared last week at our annual retreat with our steering committee. So we have over 70 community and business partners at the table, kind of making sure that we're held accountable to some of the outcomes that we have committed ourselves to through the College and Career Academy transformation. And they also provide guidance and oversight to the College and Career Academy implementation. Just to give you a little bit of context, in historical context, Akron Public Schools was designated a Ford NGL community in May of 2017. In 17-18 school year, North High School launched wall-to-wall academies at our pilot school. In 18-19 school year, we launched freshman academies across the district. In this past year, 2019-2020 was our first year of wall-to-wall implementation across the district. And it was a huge success that we're very excited about to share those outcomes with you. But as Dr. McWilliams-Woods mentioned, this is just the very beginning for us. We, as a design team and as a community and as a school district, we started at that high school level, but we're very intentional on building that middle school piece that helps us get our students ready to make the most of their high school experience, as well as building that foundation in the pre-K and elementary grades to make sure students have the skills and competency and are ready to fulfill those portrait of a graduate competencies that have been laid out. We always start with our district focus, which is to be the #1 urban school system in the United States. We feel very strongly that college and career academies is the vehicle to help us achieve that goal. As another reminder, and to keep us aligned to the goals of college and career academies, we are a part of the Ford Next Generation Learning Community. This is a group of school districts across the country transforming not only just their high school experience, but their community to really fill the talent needs of the workforce and to build the economic stability that we know is vital to the health of any community. Ford really puts their weight in 3 major strands: transforming teaching and learning, transforming the secondary school experience, and transforming business and civic engagement. I think our leadership has really spent time with the Ford NGL community because it aligns so well to our own district focus. Our updates today are going to really focus on that first year of wall-to-wall implementation. So the outcomes that you're going to hear about today, we want to make sure this is very clear in that it was our very first year of implementation, and we had a small little bit of issue to deal with called COVID-19. So that disruption has of course impacted some of the data points that we're going to share with you today. That being said, we are going to continue to monitor the same exact data points so that when we share back to our steering committee as well as to you, the Board of Education, we're always comparing the same 2 data points. We know that there's some impact on the COVID-19 had on our data points, but we're going to continue to keep that static year by year so that we can make sure we share that accurate information with you. And then the other piece will be an update on our master plan. So let's get started with the data. One of the major key strategic partners that Akron Public Schools is very fortunate to have is the Summit Education Initiative. This is a nonprofit academic backbone organization that really helps all of us use data to give us information to set up our instruction. This Cradle to Career Alliance is really that pre-K to 12th grade pipeline with predictive data at different grade level bands that help us make sure we're adjusting our plans and adjusting instruction so that we make sure our kids graduate college and career ready. So SEI has been an outstanding partner of ours, and we continue to lean on them for that predictive analytics that help us guide this ship. Dr. McWilliams-Woods?
Yeah, one of the points that we want to emphasize in this kind of a pipeline and continuum towards progress that we have all adopted in the entire region here, including all the districts in the county and all of our key community partners, is this notion that these are the key transition points. But if you notice the purple aspect of this pipeline to success, these are all the things that wrap around students that also ensure success. So when you look at 3rd grade reading, the notion is it's not just about the actual teaching in the classroom that's happening. It's also do students have rich books and materials at home from an early year? Do they have early childhood experiences before they get into that kindergarten and third grade? It also includes after-school programming. Are they having opportunities and experiences after school to enrich? All of the band around the yellow that you see in this visual represents all of the wraparound that the whole community provides support, as sort of the yellow part is the educators doing their academic piece during the year. I wanted to draw.
Sorry, can I pause for 1 second?
Yes.
Just want to note for the record that Mr. Alexander has joined us at 4:45. And if you guys could, he's joining via phone, but he may follow along in the document that you provided in Board Docs. So if you could maybe just describe the page you're on and let him know when you're slipping to the next slide there.
That's great. This is slide 6 here. I'm actually going to go to something that's not in the handout because I wanted to draw your attention to what's called our district profile. And this is actually linked to right to our Ohio Department of Education report card. And this profile then shows sort of the rest of the story compared to just the testing data that is represented in our report card. And as all of you know, the importance that we place in our district is not the result of one seat time and one test at one point in time. We are much more focused on that whole preparation for the child and wrapping around supports to meet those competencies on that portrait of a graduate that Mrs. Teka showed. So linked to our report card is actually this district profile. This is also found on our website. It hasn't been updated for this past 1920 school year yet because all of the data hasn't been completed for the state and submitted for us to update it. But by early fall, it'll be updated. But what the rest of the story that this shows is looking at all of our wraparound supports from our community for our college and career academy preparation, things like 7,764 college credits earned because of the partnerships that we have with the university. And we'll dive deeper into this, some of the college and career academy high school data in a minute. But I also wanted to show you and kind of showcase the work that we're doing in our college and career academies at the elementary level with our key partners, ArtSpark, Akron Zoo, Stan Hewitt, the Akron Art Museum, and the Cleveland Museum of Natural History and Hale Farm. This is all supported through the GAR Foundation. These supports that we and the community partnerships that we have allow 9,000 students, and this has all been progress that we've made over the past 2 years to enable our elementary students to start to engage in the community so that they learn those professionalism skills and they start to do more inquiry-based hands-on learning out in the community and start to solve real-world problems out in the community, which creates the community that we want in this fine city where students care about their community and adults care about their community. All of this is that pipeline to graduate students that have the competencies that our business partners have asked for. And we take that very seriously. When the superintendent came in, he really shifted our whole thinking around that we're not here just to graduate students, and that's not the work and our goal. Our job is to really be the economic backbone for this community. And we're the ones preparing the workforce and good citizens to be able to care about this city. And we take that very seriously, that is our mission. So early experiences like this create that momentum and learning skills at that age that then leads to the middle school, that then naturally gets into the high school where the students dive deeply into their careers that we'll show you in a minute. The other thing that I wanted to showcase because of that Summit Education Initiative pipeline to success, the wraparound supports and the enjoyment and engagement in the arts and extracurriculars and areas that we offer in the district. And this has been one of our key strategies in the College and Career Academies, is to expand the arts, expand extracurricular, expand our clubs, expand all of our career-oriented clubs, both at the middle school and high school, all of that richness that we all probably remember as a child in education, taking advantage of giving back and learning all that student leadership skills. That's the key for us. And that has been a key priority for us to build the systems that we needed. And we've been taking off in that area and making progress. And you can see some of the fine arts that we offer, but this is a key strategy for us moving forward, that we don't want to lose momentum, that as we continue to expand clubs, extracurriculars, a lot of our student leadership opportunities, that's the way that students are going to build those competencies on our portrait of a graduate that feeds right into the business settings that all of our employers in this region have asked us to produce. I also want to share with you some data that will be updated in the fall once we finish our data submission to the state. And the state always has the graduation rate as a year behind. So this data is actually from 2018. On this report card that we'll get in the fall, it'll be 2019 graduation. But every year what we do is we look to see what would the graduation rate have been for students if they had stayed with us through their schooling rather than students who come in and out. And what you see on this slide shows the blue, and this is the class of 2016, 17, and 18. The blue is students not enrolled in APS all 4 years of high school. And the green is what our graduation rate would have been for the students if we had just pulled out the students who were with us for 4 years. And so it clearly demonstrates on our 4-year graduation rate that if students stay with us for the 4 years, the dramatic kind of difference in terms of their graduation rate. And the same thing is true for our 5-year rate as well. And then the final thing that I want to showcase here is our strong improvements over time in our academic and our English and math at the elementary level in those early grades. This is from 2014-15 is the first bar to 2018-19. And these are based on measures. This is percentiles. So this is a different way of looking at data. This is not percentage of who passed tests. This is percentile, which means in the first kindergarten, we have gone from the 42nd percentile in 2014-15 on our MAP data to the 60th percentile. And the 60th percentile means that when you look at all of the test results across the country, our Akron Public Schools students performed better than the 60% of the students who took the test across the country. So we're in the 60th percentile. And the average is within that 40th percentile range is when you start to get kind of in the normal average. So anytime you get above the 50th percentile, you're exceeding the national norm across the country. And so you see the gains that we've been making. Again, this is because of all the strategies we've put in place academically, and now with the wraparound with all of the College and Career Academy transformation of really preparing students in that more well-rounded way, we believe that the progress is critical for us not to lose a beat during this COVID time, and also not to lose a beat in terms of being able to support our progress moving forward. The last thing that I'm going to show you is kind of a visual of the long history of our graduation trends. And this is sort of an interesting chart to look at. It has both 4-year and 5-year. The blue line is our 4-year graduation rate, and the red line is our 5-year graduation rate. The reason why I went back so long ago is to just show you what happened in the state of Ohio, where graduation rates were really moving up just as ours were. And then the Common Core standards and all the new assessments came in, and new graduation requirements, and everybody in the state took about a 20-point drop. And then you could see sort of the recovery since then. The blue line actually does go up here where we converged for our 4-year graduation rate, and it's increased to 80.2%. And then our 5-year graduation rate has improved to 83.8%. And the state average is at 85.3%. You can see over time, particularly with our College and Career Academy transformation these past few years, that continued increase. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rachel, and we're going to take a deep dive into the pathways now and our actual results for our 9th grade academy and our 10th through 12th grade cohorts.
And
I
before
can't
we
hear
start,
her.
can we just confirm that Derek is still on?
And I'm not sure what Ellen said in her last minute, but I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
I was just clicking back to make sure. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go back to Rachel then.
And while
Okay.
you're doing that, can I hear from
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Derek?
I was like,
Make sure Derek's on.
This is Derek. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you, Derek. Okay.
So just a quick update. Yeah, it's a quick update. I missed probably the last 5 minutes. The Wi-Fi, the hotspot thing stopped working. It's still not working. So I'm just dialing in via phone. But I probably missed the last 5 minutes of what Ellen talked about. So you don't need to go back for me. I'll catch up later. But just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what you have in front of you is a visualization of the academies and pathways that have been offered across the city for the 1920 school year. Just a visualization to remind you all that we offer freshman academy in every high school, and then each academy has different pathways for students to explore during 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The next slide is just a reminder that we have used the Summit Education Initiative Predictive Analytics to really help our freshman academies set goals for themselves to make sure that we're making students who end 9th grade with at least a B average or better and 6.5 credits or more are at least twice as likely to graduate prepared for success. Summit Education Initiative also says that students who miss less than 8 days of school during one school year are also more on track to graduate college and career ready. So what we have done in the freshman academies is use those predictive analytics to help us set measurable goals for our students in 9th grade. So the first set of data that I'm going to share with you is around the freshman academies. What you have in front of you is the average number of credits earned at each high school. As mentioned, 6.5 credits or more gives all of our students a better opportunity to take higher level courses, college classes, as well as explore more areas of interest if they can get that really strong foundation in 9th grade. What you see is 6 out of 7 of our high schools had improvement in the average number of credits earned, which was more than a half a credit increase from the 18-19 school year. So really proud of the focus on making sure our students earn their credits in 9th grade. The second slide is basically so we're making sure that more of our students are earning that 6.5 credits or more. We are tracking the percentage numbers. And so when you see the information shared in front of you, we have over a 12% increase in the total number of students who are hitting that indicator across the city. It is impressive, and I wanted to give a little shout out to Ellett High School. Their freshman academy had over a 32% increase during the 18-19 school year with their number of freshmen hitting that indicator. So some really good growth with a lot of effort by the teachers, the community partners, families, and students to make sure they were earning all of their credits in 9th grade. The next slide with regard to the freshman academy really focuses on grades, right? So when we talk about credits, we're talking about students who earn a credit with meeting those minimum level of expectations. You have to pass your class to earn a credit. When we talk about grade point averages, that is showing students' mastery of the content, that they are showing that they are learning everything that we are expecting them to learn to show that kind of high level of achievement. This is a harder indicator to move, is what I'm trying to say. And so when you look at the percentage of our freshmen who earned a 3.0 or higher during the 19-20 school year, we had almost a 7% increase across the district. Just very proud of the fact that we're really building that high expectations for our students when they enter high school. And I think it's a testimony to the people who really dedicate their time and effort to making sure that our freshmen are getting what they need to be successful. We do have 2 slides with regard to school climate in the freshman academy. We are looking at measuring out of school suspension and in-school suspension. As I mentioned in the steering committee meeting, we know school climate is critically important, and we know we have work to do around school climate. But what I think you see with year 2 of implementation, as a reminder, freshman academy was in year 2 of implementation, was really concerted effort to teach explicitly the behavioral expectations, hold students accountable, and reinforce those skills on a daily basis so that we're learning all the professional skills necessary to not only be successful in high school, but also be prepared for life after high school. So we have a 12% decrease in out-of-school suspension in 9th grade. And if you go to the next slide, we have a 38% decrease in in-school suspension in 9th grade. So that's a little update on what is happening in the freshman academies across the city in year 2 of any implementation. Any questions or comments about the freshman academy and their outcomes?
Ms. Autry?
Yes, I noticed in the display of the different academies, East and Bookto have academy prep versus freshman academy. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're both going to be getting freshman academy, but can you explain what the difference is between academy prep and the freshman academy?
Sure. Dr. McWilliams, do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay. So Ms. Autry, when we this was our first year of implementation, Academy Prep was really focused on our 8th grade students in both Bookto and East, because students started their pathway classes in 9th grade at Bookto and East. What we've realized after a year of implementation, that even if students who are in a 7 to 12 building still need that really strong freshman academy experience. So we are shifting that in the 2021 school year to build that true freshman academy in the 9th grade at Bookto and East.
So why was it that way anyway, though?
So that was built initially. Every pathway, and this is important probably for everyone to keep in mind, when we designed the pathways, across the city. They were built with 75 to 100 students in each pathway. So to be able to offer a variety of pathways at East and Bookdale, we had to include the 9th grade as part of that enrollment piece to be able to offer a variety of pathways. If not, we would have been limited in what students could have access to it at each of those schools.
Right, their enrollment wouldn't have supported a variety of pathways, and we were real concerned about that, particularly when in all the community meetings, there was such a desire to have kind of a broad offering at both schools, that if we added the 9th grade and started the 9th graders into the academies early, so they sort of had the advantage that they got to start the pathway courses earlier, we could then offer the rich diversity. The faculty and students have said, though, that they feel like they don't like being kind of off a different schedule as the other schools and starting in 8th grade versus 9th grade. So we've tried to make that adjustment going into next year to go ahead and have them back to a traditional 9th grade. And we've been able to do it in a way that we're not dropping a number of pathways.
So am I correct then that you mentioned the variety, so now that they're going to have freshman academy, is that going to affect the variety then that's going to be offered, since that's what initially?
Right, no, we have been able to do it in a way because enrollment at East, for example, has really been strong in terms of over the years, they've picked up additional students. So we're not going to have to make any reductions. Same thing with Bookdale. We're not going to have to reduce the number of pathways to switch from 9th grade. Their pathways will be smaller, and we're hoping that over time, over the years, just like we've talked about every time we talk about the academies, how we know that once students really become educated in learning about their own self and their careers, that the enrollment will really flourish across all the pathways. So for going into this next year, we haven't had to make any reductions by making that switch to the 9th grade academy.
Okay, I do have a final related comment on the freshman academy. Do you, in your opinion, either one of you think that's has any effect on why East and Bookdale have such significantly lower amounts of the 3.0s, because they were both at 17%, which is almost half of what the other freshman academies are producing in terms of 3.0. You think that had anything to do with it, or?
Rachel, I'll let you answer because you've worked more closely with the 9th grade and 8th grade teams.
Yeah, I think there's not as many systems, Ms. Autry, when you don't have that freshman academy and a group of teachers monitoring that and pushing students and building systems around our students to make sure they're successful. I think not having that did have an impact.
Thank you. Dr. Hall?
So first, let me just make sure that you can all hear me. It's just testing. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, yeah, several questions. The first one was, and I apologize, I was having some technology issues and probably missed 5 minutes of the presentation. So if you've already discussed this, just feel free to say that and we can follow up offline. But my first question, though, to Ms. Teka, is there was a slide earlier on in the presentation where you talked about SEI and that predictive analytics. I was really interested in hearing, did they design their own predictive analytic algorithm, or are they using another company's, or is there a coalition that produced the algorithm that SEI is then using? I guess I was really interested to hear more about that, because when we get into sort of using terms like predictive, in relation to certain, in relation to students and student outcomes, I just want to make sure I have a better understanding of sort of the origin story behind that.
Yeah, at Summit Education Initiative, Matt Devers was their senior researcher, and he's now the executive director of Summit Education Initiative. And so he designed all of the predictive analytics based on national research on these key indicators. And so he is able to take all of our data, and he does this across the county. He has access to the data for all of the districts in the county and is able to look exactly at predictors all the way back to kindergarten and first grade for later success. And he has a PhD in this all data science that he's able to put this together for all the districts. It's incredibly valuable. And that's the pipeline shows the key transition points and the levers that impact that is kind of packed behind that. But then he also works with each district and he shows us based on our own data exactly what are the red flags throughout K through 12 that we need to pay attention to that predict later success, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess, and thank you for that. I guess, what my thought is I'd love to, if we could organize sort of an offline, orientation for those of us who are interested in learning more about that. Because again, because there are things that I think come to the board as it relates to CCAA and some other items that seem to be, a lot of our programming seems to be sort of predicated upon information that he's providing out of SEI. And I just would like to have, and those of us who are new to the board, I know that Patrick and Lisa and Bruce have been around for a while and probably have already had a lot more of this, but it might be beneficial for, at least for myself anyway, and perhaps possibly for other board members to have a better understanding of sort of what goes on in that sort of analytic sort of black box, if you will.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. And then my second question was, there was a slide, this question might be for Ms. Tech as well, but there was a slide where you talked about a 38.1% reduction. Was that an out of school suspension? Let's make sure that I caught that on the slide. Was that out of school suspension, Ms. Tech, or was that in school?
That was in school suspension.
In school suspension, okay. And then, so to that point, was there a multifactorial sort of reason for that reduction? Like, was there one in particular type of incident that we saw reduce, that we're linking back to the start of this of the college and career academies? I guess I'm asking, like, are we saying that there's a correlation or a causation there? And I guess it's sort of the first question. Then secondly, we're saying that it's causative in nature. I'm just curious as to what types of incidents did we see reduce as a result of going the CCAA route?
Really good question. What I would say is this: we finished this data, compiling this data for the steering committee last Wednesday. What we will be doing is turning this data over to our building school improvement teams to really dig into their own individual data, to really tease out all of those kind of intricacies that you just mentioned. From a big district point of view, when I look at just the overall trend with freshman academies, I would say, looking at the high functioning teaming that is happening in 9th grade with our teachers, our community partners, and our families is wrapping around supports for students and helping them through that transition to high school and supporting them through learning all of the things that they need to learn that first year of high school to be successful. I would venture to say that's probably the most influential piece that have been implemented. And that's from teachers and principals and family members seeing that outcome. But we're going to let our buildings dig into these data points to really figure out exactly what they need to continue and or move forward for 2021.
Yeah, and Dr. Hall, I would just add to that one of the major elements of the College and Career Academy transformation is that small learning communities that Mrs. Teka keeps referencing, that we've taken these big, comprehensive high schools and organized in these academies. So one group of teachers, of the core academic teachers and the elective teachers, now are assigned to this group of kids. It's typically around 250 to 300 kids. That they own those kids. Now they're meeting weekly about those kids instead of kids who are just moving about a large high school and seeing random teachers assigned to them throughout the day. And it's very difficult to have those teachers then talk to other teachers that have those same kids. That was what we used to look like. Now we're organizing so that the teachers meet about those kids that they're serving in their academy, their freshman academy, and they're talking, how did they do in your class? Oh, he was tired in my, he's not doing his assignments in my, why don't I reach out to him? And all of that personal nature of it, I think is the transformational part of this work. And I think that data is, we saw it when North was our trailblazer high school, and now we're seeing it across our other high schools.
Thank you. So just have a follow-up comment, one more question. So I know that when we were all, when the new board members sort of traveled to Nashville to sort of go through the orientation, I know Ms. Tecca, Dr. McWilliams-Woods, you were there with us as well. You know, again, that was eye-opening for us, as I think, at least for me as a new board member. And to your point, you know, in talking with the principals there on that trip, you know, they talked about how they believe that there was a high degree of correlation, if you will, causation, perhaps, between their transition to a college and curriculum model and sort of reductions in certain types of discipline. So that's the origin of my question about that, Ms. Tecca.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, the other thing that I'd like to sort of put out there is that I know that a couple of the building principals, at least for those who are at the high schools, they all talked about how they took that individualized data, Ms. Tecca, that you referenced, and they took, you know, so to your point, they went and did kind of that deep dive in it. And then each of the campus principals, at least for high schools, then came to the board to present sort of a state of the state, if you will, you know, to really sort of educate the board on what they were seeing, you know, in that data. So I would be very interested in keen on us sort of the consideration of adopting a similar approach, you know, at least with the high schools, because again, I know that, you know, this is where this work started at, and that's where we're gonna have the most data. So that's my comment. And then my last question was, in thinking about sort of the pathways, there's a plethora of pathways that are being offered across the various college and career academies. And I know that, you know, using healthcare as an example, you know, we know that healthcare is 1/6 of our economy, and it's sort of occupies now the, you know, it's one of the members now, the new commanding heights of the economy, along with education. So I understand why we offer as many pathways as we do around something like education. My question is, you know, is working with 8th and 9th graders. I can imagine it's challenging to create enough time, if you will, to adequately explain the differences, because as I looked at it, it kind of runs together for me, and I'm an adult and I actually work in healthcare. You know, so I guess my sort of question / concern is, you know, sort of, you know, how do we, and I get that this is a work in progress, right? I mean, Rome was not built in a day either. But I guess my question is sort of, how do we sort of ensure, or what's the process that we use to try to get these students as much time to understand sort of the differences and nuances between, again, something like healthcare, where there's like 5 or 6 different pathways across multiple schools, like really helping them to sort of understand that the differences and nuances between those offerings?
No, that's a really good question. You know, I think that really speaks to the next phase of our work, which is transforming our middle schools into the pipeline, so students have 3 years to really dig into what their options are in high school and explore. I mean, the ability to really learn what all of those careers are and then see where they're offered across the city. It's going to take all 3 years of middle school to give them those opportunities to learn. And I think that speaks to the work that Mark Black is doing with the middle schools and getting them ready for this next phase. And our plan is to bring to the board sometime this summer an addendum to the master plan that really structures and builds systems to support middle school transformation. So I think you're saying exactly what we've been preparing to share with you later this summer.
Right.
Gotcha.
I was smiling because I thought I couldn't have asked Dr. Hall to ask a better question about how are you preparing for high school, because we've been doing the master plan all year, and we were going to bring it to you this spring, and then COVID-19 happens, but we are getting back on track. The Instructional Policy Committee talked about it at our last meeting and mapped out a new timeline for us to bring the middle school transformation plan to you for adoption, consideration for adoption this summer.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, my question was not meant to sort of be critical, right? It was just sort of, and I know that,
Important.
yeah. So Suma, for example, is a partner over at Bookdale. And so I know that I was one of the folks that went to Bookdale for the junior high day when the 8th graders were rotating through, and they had 5 to 6 minutes per station. There was just no way that we could adequately explain in 5 to 6 minutes sort of what the Suma, what the pathway, our healthcare pathway was really about. But it was just, again, there were a lot of well-intentioned people, obviously. So a lot of work went into it. But I remember my takeaway was like, wow, like you've got a really engaged audience of students who wanted to hear more. And you have, your teachers and counselors are really engaged about trying to deliver it. And the vendors who were there, like Suma, we were wanting to provide, really do our part. But there were some limitations around kind of the timing and things like that. So that's kind of, again, that's the origin story behind me asking that question as well.
And before we go on to the next part, the 10th through 12th grade, I should also add that we also do we've built in, as soon as we started the high school transformation work, we did shift some things at the middle school to do more career exposure, to do more college exposure. We have a software portal type program that students get individual career exploration and video experiences and career interest inventories. It's called career cruising that they do. Plus we have showcases that the middle school 8th graders get to go and go into a big convention center to actually see all of the pathways and interact more deeply. So even though we haven't passed our middle school transformation plan, we've been putting lots of strategies in place at the middle school to inform students on making good selections. We just want to take it to the next level now and deepen it even further.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your responses.
Okay, so the next piece that we'd like to share with you is around our accountability for 10th through 12th grade academies. Just as a reminder, when the master plan was developed for the high schools, we had steering committee members and business partners who came to the table to say, these are the measures that we would like to see college and career academies move or influence. And so what we're going to share with you in the next few minutes is really around what information we have right now on July 1st of 2020, but some of the indicators that the steering committee would like to see, we have to wait until they are official from the state or different opportunities when they come in that we will be sharing with the steering committee, and then we will then be sharing with you as the board. So graduation rate won't be in until November of this year. We will be sharing attendance and discipline data with you. We are tracking our graduates who enroll, enlist, or are employed. And we have a system for the state of Ohio where we have to follow our graduates 6 months after graduation and to see exactly where they are 6 months post graduation. And so we'll have that information to share with you all in March of 2021. About 2 years ago, we set out to measure the competencies outlined in the Portrait of a Graduate, and our business and community partners felt that the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal was the best way to really show those skills and competencies in the Portrait of a Graduate. The first class of 20 graduating class in WalltoWall academies will be in June of 2022. And our goal is to have 100% of our students in that class graduate with that seal and their diploma. We will be sharing partnership and pathways with you today, as well as the next slide. Our student experiential hours and experiences will be shared in November, as well as partner engagement and satisfaction. Today, we'll be able to share with you some of the higher level courses offered across the city, as well as industry credentials. And then the student satisfaction will be coming in November 2020 as well. And we aren't sharing the enrollment and pathways because our industry sector partnerships will be looking at that today, and I will share that with the board as soon as that's finished. So that first piece that the master plan really laid out around accountability had us monitoring attendance data. And as you can see, for our attendance rate for the 2021 school year, it was pretty flat. We had a very minimal increase in attendance rates across the city. So I think that's an area of growth for us, an opportunity to really figure out the why behind that and see what we can do to influence that attendance rate. One of our most important strategies that we're looking to implement in 2021 is the Get to School program. That's in partnership with the Cleveland Browns organization that Carla Chapman is leading. And so she shared with our steering committee last week some of those strategies that we're looking forward to really making an impact in the 2021 school year on attendance. The next data point is on out of school suspension. Again, there was a 10% decrease across the city in students in 10th through 12th grade with out of school suspension. So you see that, as mentioned in the freshman academy data, 10% decrease is great, but we know that we have a lot of work to do around school climate and continually work on building those systems and structures to support our kids so that they learn all of those professional skills necessary to be successful after graduation. We began tracking the amount of higher level courses offered at each high school. What you see in front of you here is baseline data. This was our first year of tracking the amount of higher level courses offered at each high school. When we talk about higher level courses, we're referring to any honors course, an International Baccalaureate or IB course, an AP or Advanced Placement course, as well as College Credit Plus courses. So I want to restate the fact that this is baseline data for us that we'll be working on influencing over the next few years, but there is opportunities for growth in all of our schools. I do want to mention that Akron Early College has the highest amount of higher level courses because of their partnership with the University of Akron, and that their students graduate with both a high school diploma and an associate's degree. So I think that that kind of may be really important to know when you look at that information. We are tracking industry credentials. As a reminder, an industry credential is an adult level test that shows a person has an expertise in a specific career field. We put a huge emphasis on this last year in 18-19. We spent a lot of time moving our teachers and our pathway teachers and working with our business partners to really identify what industry credential can a student reasonably obtain while in high school that gives them a competitive advantage when they graduate. We did have a 14% decrease in industry credentials learned this school year. And part of that decrease was the inability for our students to sit for some of those industry credential tests in the spring. And I know that really hurt some of our students. We are continuing to be able to offer students the ability to come in and take tests as it's been allowable with safety restrictions in place. So for example, we have students beginning next week to come into Bookdole to take, to accrue some of their lab hours for cosmetology. And those students could then still earn their industry credential this summer. So this data, as it says, is of June of 2020. I fully intend for there to be additional students earning an industry credential in the next few months across the city.
And I do want to just showcase that the year before, when we went up to 1,445 industry credentials, I think it was like a 600% increase or something like that. We had just a huge, enormous jump the year before as we started building these academies and building these credentials right into each pathway. And unfortunately, COVID has impacted our ability, but I'm hoping just because the students didn't take the test this year, they should be able to pick them up next year. You know, if they're the sophomores and juniors and seniors now going into next year, it's not that they've lost the year completely, that they can't pick up the credential. All the preparation they did this year, even if the test was canceled or they couldn't come in for it, they can still pick it up next year. And hopefully we'll see the numbers go right back up.
Agreed. The next slide really just shows the shift that we would like to make in college and career academies, in that we're going to start reporting industry credentials by graduating classes. The reason why this is important to move to graduating classes rather than total industry credentials earned is because that is what will be reported to the state of Ohio and reflected on our state report card. So it's important for us when we're communicating information to the public, to our families, to anyone invested in college and career academies, to make sure that that data that's coming up on our report card measure is exactly the same that we're sharing with our steering committee members. So when you look at the information here, this is information as of June 2020 of industry credentials earned by the graduating class of 2020. The last indicator that we'd like to share with you tonight is around partner engagement. And I think, as mentioned earlier, the Ford NGL network has been very invested in the structures and systems that Dr. James and the Board of Education has built around engaging business and community partners in this transformational work. Currently, we have over 269 partners in different high schools, and that can be anywhere from as Dr. Hall mentioned, a career expo opportunity to relevant learning experiences for our students. As a reminder, this is our first year of wall-to-wall implementation, and I think this is a testimony to the community that we live in and the investment of our partners to really make a difference in the lives of our kids. We have 10 of our 15 academies who have a named integrated partner, and that is a deeper partnership within that academy to get fully invested in the learning opportunities provided to the students in that academy. And I do think we have a couple more, Dr. James, coming this fall with named integrated partners that we're excited about. And then lastly, 5 of our high schools have a post-secondary partner that we call a sister college or a sister university. This is taking the expertise of our post-secondary partners and really making sure we're building that strong college access pipeline for all of our students who are interested in the next steps after high school. So definitely a strength for us as a community and the level of commitment shown by our business partners. What you're going to see in this next slide is the total hours given to each of the schools and hours by student, as well as time and talent values. It's pretty impressive when you really look at in 1 year's time what that value looks like. And I shouldn't say 1 year's time because some of these partners came on the first year of freshman academy. So this is an accumulation of the last 2 years of total hours, time and talent, as well as equipment and monetary gifts given. It's very impressive, and I think it's really benefiting our students across the district.
And I will add on the partners, when we first mapped out our master plan, we really thought that this would be a 5-year journey to even get our academies partnered in terms of our pathways. I'm not talking about the named partners. We thought that would take 5, 6, 7 years to get all of our academies named, but just to get each pathway to get, 3, 5, 7 pathways built, the partnerships built. The amount of energy and excitement and enthusiasm from our business partners really was overwhelming. It almost came faster than we expected and that we were planned and prepared for. So I can't say enough. And obviously each academy now partnership team, when all the advisories sit down and look, they'll start to look at, where are the gaps? Where do we need to fill in? What other types of businesses do we need? We've just built those structures this year to have those advisories where they can look. And now the industry partnerships will start to kind of compare across schools and look at, do we need more healthcare and how is our healthcare? Do we have the right partners in every single healthcare sector? All of that now fine tuning the partnerships. Now that we've got the structures in place, will start to happen this next year.
Any questions or comments?
Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. I didn't know if Patrick was recognizing us or not, but so when you had that there were so many gifts given, for example, to the pathways, and I can't remember all the different gifts that I remember seeing, but I know um, I remember there was one for Firestone for like $99,000 or something like that, and I think Kenmore Garfield. I, when we announced Start State, wasn't there some type of monetary amount or something that I remember going with that? Is that not considered a gift? Is that considered something else?
So
I'm trying to differentiate because I don't see that there, so it kind of glares out at me.
yeah, that's a really good question, and I can go back and check that, Dr. Akbar. But when we talk about monetary gifts and equipment, those are usually like donations of physical items or grants that they've given to schools. So for example, if Akron Children's Hospital donated patient beds to North, that would be documented here. If Stark State is given opportunities for time and talent for guidance, that would be in the blue column there as far as what we consider time and talent. So when we think of that last column, I think of more of physical items or money that has been provided through grants opportunities versus time and talent. But I'll go back and verify because I'm not sure what you're referring to at Firestone, but we will look. I'm happy to look that up.
Yeah, the Firestone one, just from memory, when like, I mean, it could just be a cost for naming because I remember when Kid State was named a partner or what have you for the different academies, there was a company like $99,000. I can't remember if that's the exact amount, but that's the amount that sticks in my head. So I'm just wondering, and I thought there was an amount that was listed when Start State did the same thing. So that's why I just was wondering about that.
Yeah, this is an area that when we report out, and let me kind of back up for 1 second, because one really, really important thing that has been a foundational piece of our partnerships and the way we approach our partnerships. And this is actually part of kind of the advice from our national partners with college and career academies. Anytime we approach a business through United Way that brings us together with our partnerships, we never ask for a penny. There's no dollar amount that must be handed over to be a partner. We don't ask for the equipment. We don't ask for any kind of financial money from the partnership. And the reason why we do that is because what we're looking for in the partnership is the time with our students, the access to their business and to their company and to the human resources and kind of the experiential resources that they have. That's what we're after. And we're after their expertise to come and tell us, here's what we want from your graduates so that they can walk right into either go to college and come back or go walk right into a position here to boost our economy and to make our city fabulous and great for the long term. You know, that's what we're after. So I think that's really important because we don't ever want the community to think that it's anything other than that. What does happen is sometimes when companies are there, they'll be going into our labs and they'll say, you know, I'd be happy to upgrade that machine, or I have a machine that I can give you that's in my lab right now, and why don't I just exchange it out? And that's where some of these financial, it's the natural things that happen that are more around the equipment and the supplies versus a lot of the, because we've gotten a lot of other amazing experiences and funding supports through our partnerships, or like at Kent State, some of the summer programming that happens through grants and a lot of that. And we don't capture all of that here. We just capture if there was actually a piece of equipment offered. I just wanted to make sure that that was super clear on the reason why we partner with folks.
Thank you, Ms. McKittrick.
I'm looking at the partner engagement slide. If you could go back to that really quickly, please. Thank you. And while I appreciate the blue column with the time and talent, when equipment and monetary gifts are given, how do you try to balance that out? Because obviously those zeros for some of those schools are pretty glaring. And so how do we, when those things are given to the district, how do we try and make sure that the wealth is shared, if you will? Thank you.
What happens now is, and the structures that we set up this year is we have the business advisories in place with every academy in all of our high schools. And then we also have what's called industry councils that are sector-based. So we have a healthcare industry council, and this is supported through Connexus NEO, and they facilitate the meetings. So all of the healthcare pathways across the city have representatives that sit on a council then and look at healthcare across the entire region, look at the needs, and then look at each of the high schools and look at the pathways. And so between those two layers, they are the ones who look at the health of the pathways and the health of the partnerships and look at where we need to keep taking our progress moving forward. And so they'll be looking at all of this data and even a deeper dive data than what you're seeing here. And then they'll make recommendations and start working with the partnerships that exists in each of the school. But again, we're not gonna ask for money. That's not what we want. And I know, and the superintendent always laughs whenever I say that, because he's like, I'll always take the money, but our focus is the hours and the total and the time and talent. We just reflected that just to show other kind of secondary things that happen when people offer equipment and supplies. So we have two, if it's okay, Mr. President, we have two more just closing slides. And then if there's any other questions after that.
Yeah.
So the slide, just as a reminder that our community has built a 5-year strategic plan that the board adopted in 2017. And we have absolutely worked diligently to be true to our word and implement the action plans that were set forth in that master plan. If you go to the next slide, there were over 15 tactical plans that were built to really build the systems and structures necessary for the high school transformation. Everything you see in green are systems and structures that have been built to implement college and career academies at the high school level. They're implemented fully, and the areas that have a check mark means that we are getting national recognition for the work that we are doing and serving, for example, our students with low incident disabilities, our CCA partnerships, our business advisories, and our communication plan. Districts and communities across the nation have reached out to Akron to really share some of the work that we're doing in those specific areas. What you see in yellow are tactical plans that were built in 2017 that we have determined we need to go deeper in. We laid out a plan for elementary, but when we look at what has to happen at that foundation level, we have to go deeper with that, right? We have to keep building that foundation so that students have an opportunity to explore careers, build professional skills, and really be ready for middle school. If you look at the middle school, we had a middle school plan, but it really wasn't enough of that transformation or change necessary to really make sure our students leave middle school ready to take full advantage of that high school, college, and career academy experience. We're still working on shifting to that instructional problem-based learning as well as family engagement. I think we work hard in that area, but I think that's one of those areas that we can continue to get better at. So the areas in yellow are really what's driving college and career academies to the next level. And we are very excited to be able to bring to the board some of the work that has been designed around the middle school transformation. We had outstanding parent, community, family engagement around what that needs to look like in middle school. And we're excited to bring that before you sometime this summer.
So we've been able to share the progress that we've made and this incredible momentum that we've had going with our pre-K through 12 College and Career Academy transformation. And when we talk about that, this is the whole district transformation. This isn't just one little program that we're doing off to the side. This encompasses all of those key components around shifting transforming our teaching and learning into more of that hands-on, inquiry-based, project-based, and out into the community-based instruction, and then transforming our business and community partnerships, which you heard so much about, and then transforming the way that we do school, the way we're structured, the small learning communities, how students are engaging in their careers, and looking at doing the same thing at middle school and then elementary with all of our essential experiences and how they're doing school at elementary. So this is a whole transformation. And then we don't talk about this just as a district transformation. This is the whole city, because you can see all of the key partners that we work with that we've talked about throughout this presentation. This is how we are operating as the workforce preparation, the arm of the key workforce preparation arm of this community, to make sure that we're preparing students with those competencies that our business partners have asked us to prepare them, so that we can feed them right into through college to the workforce or directly to the workforce. We can't lose momentum. I mean, that's what we're here to say to the board tonight, that we can't lose momentum on this success that we're having to date, and then the further work that you saw in the slides and that Mrs. Teka talked about that we need moving forward. Our student success depends on keeping all of this programming moving forward to the next level. Our key priorities are to focus on this College and Career Academy transformation with the strong progress and continuing the implementation in the high school, fall launching our middle school transformation and starting that implementation after your board approval, and then winter, spring, finalizing and bringing some additional community voices in for the elementary, and so that by spring, we can also approve an elementary transformation that gets appended to our master plan. So by the end of this year, we would have all three master plans approved, or the addendums to the master plan approved. And then obviously embedded in all of that is deploying the next phase of our equity and racial justice work that we have all talked about so much. All of the other key components, the social emotional work that we're doing, the parent engagement work, expanding all those higher level courses, looking at expanding IB, all of that is built into the College and Career Academy transformation. Those are not separate strategies over here. All of that is under this umbrella that we want to keep moving forward, and we need a fiscally sound district to be able to make sure that we're moving forward. We need a board energized and focused on these priorities. And then we need the staff to be able to continue to be engaged with our community support to move all this work forward. So thank you.
Good, thank you. Mansfield has a question to kick us off, or a comment.
Thank you. I did have the pleasure last week of listening in on some of the steering committee, and in case anyone's wondering if the enthusiasm has waned, I can tell you that our community partners seemed even more excited after working with our students than I expected even. And, you know, I believe that once you get into one of our schools, that's why it's always my question, right? When someone says something negative, is have you been there? I mean, have you actually seen it, or are you just going off something that you think that you've heard? And I think that's what our partners found. So I just want to make sure that I say that, and how much I enjoyed listening to this presentation as well. I got to tell you, the one thing I was waiting for is I was waiting for a moment to jump in and say, yeah, but what didn't work? But you guys cut us off at the pass, and you, instead of waiting for us to ask, well, you know, where did you fall short? You just laid it right out there and said, look, this is not a mission accomplished. We did it. You told us, especially with some of the great questions that Ms. Autry asked and Dr. Hall, you brought out some of the things that you're already working on for next year. So I don't really have a question. I just want to thank you for cutting us off at the pass so that I didn't have to ask those questions.
Thank you. Speaking of Ms. Autry and Dr. Hall, we'll go in that order. You both have comments or questions.
Thank you. And I just want to commend the whole Rachel Tecca. I know I worked with you closely on this as we implemented this at Bookdo as well as throughout the district. I think it's just really, really awesome opportunities that we have for our students. So one of my comments / questions is, can you tell me specifically what role the sister colleges / universities plays with the academies? And I know that all but East and Bookdo have a sister college or university. So what role is it that they play?
Yes. I want to say thank you for that kind comment, Miss Autry. I enjoyed working with you at Bookdo as well. We got some really great things working over there. And speaking of, I think we have some potential post-secondary partners for Bookdo and East on the horizon. So I'm excited to continue to nurture those relationships. The sister college and the sister university is really taking advantage of the strengths of our post-secondary partners, making sure that they're supporting our implementation of a strong college access pipeline, making sure they're supporting our families on FAFSA completion rates, making sure that we are working with our instructors to bring problem-based learning to life as experts in their field, collaborating around some problem-based learning opportunities that really make learning relevant and rigorous for our students. So we've seen some outstanding examples with our current sister colleges and sister universities. I really love the Stark State partnership at Kenmore Garfield with the inclusion of the University of Cincinnati partnership for that really nice pipeline and for students in that IT field. I think we got to continue to be innovative with these post-secondary partners to build systems like that for all of our students, because it really does give our students a competitive advantage for the next phase of their life. So those are just some of those examples of what a post-secondary sister college or sister university does. And I'm very, very hopeful that we'll be able to announce some of those other partnerships this school year.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up comment. I appreciate that moving forward, we're going to be addressing some equity and racial things as it applies. Again, being the East cluster advisor and my relationship with Bookdo, I'm just concerned about some of the numbers that I'm seeing and the causes and how we're going to address them. So I look forward to the opportunity to be able to address those things so that all the high schools and clusters can best benefit from college and career academies. Some of those numbers are just, I think we could definitely improve upon, the out of school suspension numbers. Although we have a decrease as a district, when you look at the schools that have the high numbers, I mean, to them, what does that decrease mean? Because it's not decreasing. So I really want to make sure moving forward that gets addressed, and as well as the higher level course offerings at those schools as well, so that we can look at every high school and say that no matter what your, aspirations are, it's offered at every high school.
Right. And you you can see the next level of work and the reason why we put together the structures that we did, so that we have teams examining this. We've got the accountability structures to the board and the steering committee. And we also, in our equity plan, we listed this equity in terms of higher level courses. A year ago, we mapped that out as a primary strategy and started then the data collection to be able to look at that and put in programs like AVID, which is a program at Kenmore Garfield, for example, that works with students to be able to access higher level courses, but also gives them the support so that they're successful in those. And we're expanding that into additional schools this next year, both at middle school and high school. So those are the types of strategies that we'll be able to continue to share with you and update you as the next level of work. That's why this momentum can't stop. Those are all things and programs that we need to put in place to be able to get the equity that we want across all of our high schools.
Dr. Hall?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I would echo the earlier conveyed comments with regard to Dr. McWilliams-Woods and Ms. Teka around thanking them for such a high quality, robust discussion and presentation. I had a couple what I think are clarifying questions, and then I've actually got sort of one sort of I guess legit question. The first, I guess, clarifying question is with respect to the attendance slide that you sort of walked us through earlier. We saw that was sort of an opportunity. It was kind of level, but just clarifying. But when students come to school late, let's say they're an hour late to school, that still impacts attendance, right?
We have period by period attendance at secondary, and then we have there's a cutoff time at elementary. So if you're just late and tardy, that's not counting you absent for the day.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then my second question then was with respect to the industry credentials. I know that there were a couple of slides that showed that there was, in fact, a decrease, in the latest year of data. But I guess when I was thinking about it, I know, Ms. Teka, you mentioned that we were going to transition to showing it by graduating class. Mm-hmm. I still think that fluctuations in absolute number of students is still going to impact that number. So just as a suggestion, maybe another way to sort of normalize that data is to show it, is to express it as a ratio, i.e. credentials per student might be another way to kind of show it across the board. So that way, if you have a dip in enrollment of 50 students in a year, you might show a corresponding decrease in credentials, but that's not really the true story because I had less students, right? And so there could be fluctuations in graduating class as well. So it might be easier if you're trying to normalize it mathematically to just express it as a ratio of credentials achieved per student. That's just a thought I had as you were walking through that data. And then I guess my question though is with respect to the partners. I noticed that there was a slide that said that we had 269 partners and 339 partnerships. This may be semantics, but I was thinking in my head that each partner equals one partnership. So are there partners that partner with us in more than one way? So that's why we have more partnerships than partners. I just wanted to, that was part A of that question.
Really good question. That's exactly it, Dr. Hall. What ends up happening is sometimes some of our partners decide, hey, I want to support this pathway at East, but I also want to support this pathway at Bookdale. So we count those as two partnerships, but one partner.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that. And then, so then what it brought to mind when I saw the huge number of partners was it sort of raised the specter of quantity versus quality, right? So thinking about, and again, we're still early on in how we build this, right? Nashville is what, 12 years in now, something like that. So again, when we were down there for their show, they had a lot more to show off to us because they've got 12 years in. I think we're 3 years in now, right? Sort of really first year, to your point, Ms. Teka, sort of across the board, right? So there's a lot that we're still doing here. So I want to make sure I'm constantly recognizing that fact. So when we hear that number of partners, it raises, again, that spectrum of quality versus quantity makes me sort of start to ask the question around how do we track sort of what we're getting from each partnership. How do we evaluate whether a partnership is a quality partnership? And sort of think through the criteria that we might develop to sort of be able to answer that question as we sort of move this forward. And that sort of dovetails with sort of part C of that question, which is the alignment piece, right? So I know you talked earlier about sort of showing down the road kind of the employment sort of 6 months after graduation. I would love to see sort of, the data with respect to sort of, all right, so they're partnering with us. Are they actually hiring our students, right? And in what numbers? So if I had 100 kids in a partnership, pathway A, let's use SUMA as an example, right? It's where I work, right? So I'll put us out there. If there's 100 kids in a pathway that SUMA sponsors, there were 35 kids that applied for jobs with us. How many did we actually hire, right? So that helps those companies with that sort of internal accountability as well, because what matters is what gets measured. And so again, if you sort of spin that forward, that's one of the things I'm looking to hear a lot more about as we sort of get 6 months and a year and 2 years down the road, about that alignment piece. Because if they're impacting through these advisory boards what our curricula are, what our curricula is about, and sort of what our projects are, what our experiences are, and they're donating, their time and talent, treasure, you would expect there to be that would translate into employment as well, right? So that was sort of where I'd like to see us sort of go as we move forward. And then last but not least, with respect to Ms. Autry's point, I would echo everything she said around the equity and sort of racial justice piece. The one thing I would mention is, and this is probably included in what you were talking about, but any sort of work around sort of addressing equity and sort of racial injustice as well, I would suggest that we sort of consider our grading policies and sort of in trying to introduce sort of equity in grading. Because I know that there are some districts that have begun to sort of do work around that. And so that's an area that I'm really interested in as well. So would love to see as we sort of move that work out, to at least maybe find a couple of pilot classrooms or pilot schools, if you will, to sort of partner with in that regard as well. So I didn't dare turn my video on because I was afraid I'd lose my connection. But if you could see me, to your point, Dr. McWilliams-Woods, and Ms. Teka, I think you do have a very excited board. I'm beyond excited.
No.
We were so close. We were so close.
I know. I do just want to mention a couple things, and hopefully Dr. Hall can hear me, that grading is a huge priority for us, and bringing people together to look at our grading practices, that has been identified as a major priority for us the past couple years, that we were positioned to really make a major kind of commission on grading. We'll have to look to see how that fits into this next plan, but we're hoping we can tackle it once we get school up and running this next year, because I do think that's a primary underlying kind of issue for closing some of those final gaps that Rachel was showing you about the grade point average and that achievement in that 9th grade, hitting those key indicators. And the last thing I'll just quickly say is at some point, we'll definitely have representatives from United Way and Connexus come here and share with you the data that they're collecting on partnerships and everything that you were talking about in terms of what we're collecting in their value and the participation at each partner to gauge their engagement and their involvement is really impressive. So we'd love to, all of that has just been set up, but we'd love at some point, probably in the fall, we'll be able to bring them and give you a presentation on that.
Yeah.
I'm back on, by the way. I'm sorry. I jinxed myself by saying what I said earlier. So I'm back on.
All right. Are there any other questions? And Derek, there were a few just updates from Ellen that you might catch if you play this back. There wasn't anything. I was texting you and I were texting each other as she was chatting, so I think I missed him too. I'll have to watch him back. But I think there were just two things in response to some of the questions that were asked, so we can both watch those back, I think.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, and I was texting you too, so I probably slowed you down in reconnecting. Are there any other questions or comments? Or yes, Miss Autry.
Yes. So a comment. I don't know if Rachel was on the meeting the other day or not. So I know I also work with you on that Stop Start Sustain committee.
Yes.
I don't know if that's happened or not yet. Probably not.
Right.
But one of the things that I had mentioned is we need a pathway for COVID cleaning and tracers. We would be innovative. That's going to be a new emerging industry. So
I did hear you make that comment the other day, but so I did note it. It was noted, really noted. We'll make a pathway. We'll figure something out to give kids that training for sure.
Yeah, I love that idea, actually.
Good. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Superintendent, anything else to come before the board?
Nothing to come before the board, but just a few closing remarks. I'd like to thank Mr. Hall for the comments about being excited, because right now we're going to need the board support, primarily, as you prepare for a retreat to help inform our work moving forward. And my whole team's looking forward to that. It's also, I think, a very prime time for us to connect with some of the other work that's going on in our community, both with the city, also with our chamber and many other organizations. We've already mentioned, a lot of the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion and racial justice that has to be part of this. So, my whole team's very anxious for us to, get moving on all that. And again, a lot of that will take us looking at our fiscal resources and realigning fiscal resources around new priorities. It's also going to be an opportune time for us to revisit our district focus document moving forward, and how we can make that better, and how we can actually double down on some of the priorities that we need to set for the district. So we really do look forward to that work. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we do too. Any other questions, comments, final thoughts? Hearing none, thanks again, everyone, for taking the time on a Wednesday night. I hope you all have a good 4th of July holiday. If there's nothing else to come before the board, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Stay well.
We'll see you.